Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you listening right now. Imagine that I'm hugging your ears. Thanks to all of you, including Ken Hayes, Philip Shane, Brad, and Drew Tauber. On this episode of DTNS, robots that help farmers monitor soil quality, China's catching up faster in mobile chips than a lot of people expected, and Drake has bad blood with Spotify and Apple. This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, November 26th, 2024 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Oh, my goodness. We didn't know we'd be blessed with a story about Spotify, Drake, Kendrick Lamar today, but here we are. Sarah Lane?
Here we are. No, this is
here we are now.
Written in the stars, truly. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
We used to call you on your cell phone, but this time it's a podcast, and other Drake puns will come. Let's start with the quick hits.
Brazil's antitrust regulator has ruled that Apple must lift its restrictions on in-app purchases in the country within 20 days or pay a daily fine that is equivalent to $43,000 US. Specifically, Apple must let app developers in Brazil link out to their own websites for payment or let developers handle the in-app payments themselves. Europe, Japan, South Korea, and the US have all made similar rulings.
Just give up, Apple. Just give up. Uber's in-house data labeling division, which it uses for its own AI solutions, is now available for other companies to hire. The division is called Scaled Solutions, and non-Uber clients like Aurora, which makes autonomous trucks, Niantic, which does Ingress and Pokemon Go, are using it. Scaled Solutions works by hiring contractors as necessary for projects. So a lot of the headlines are like Uber's gig work for data labeling. It's not exactly as freeform as driving for Uber, but yeah, there's a similarity. I get it. The coders come from all over, including Canada, India, Nicaragua, Poland, and of course the US.
Threads is speeding up its feature rollouts. The company is testing the ability to let you choose whether you want the following or for you or a custom feed to show up by default when you open up the Threads app. If you're in the test, you can tap and hold the feed at top and choose edit feeds to change which one comes first. I am into this. Threads is also continuing to sign up new users and says it's quite a large number, reporting at 35 million new signups this month alone.
Yeah, it looks like we have competition in the space. Kind of like that. In response to complaints about its Digital Markets Act compliance, Google will change how results appear for products, restaurants, flights, or hotel searches in the European Union. Google will use, and I quote, expanded and equally formatted units that let users choose between going to other comparison sites or going directly to the supplier or retailer's website. In Belgium, Estonia, and Germany, they'll also do a short test where hotel results specifically will no longer show up with contextual information like maps or images, but instead just return 10 blue links. They say a lot of hotels have been asking us to do that, so we're going to try it so that they can see what happens before we make that sort of change permanent.
Xiaomi, which hasn't faced as many restrictions as Huawei over the last few years, says that it will start using its own self-designed mobile processors in 2025 in order to reduce reliance on Qualcomm and MediaTek. Xiaomi plans to increase its R&D investment in chip making from 24 billion won this year to 30 billion won in 2025.
A company in Cornwall in the United Kingdom, or really specifically in England, has developed a gamma ray detector that can assess soil quality. A farmer near Bodmin is working with scientists from the University of Plymouth to test the detector. It's mounted on a robot dog from a company called Robotics. The robot moves at about 5 meters per second, which is a little faster than I can run, and can climb difficult terrain to cover the fields. Instead of manually digging up soil from a few areas in the field and then sending it to a lab and then waiting and having to pay a big bill for the lab, the dog can just wander around and monitor most of the ground for levels of radiation, which indicate the health of the soil, saving time and expense. Of course, after you've paid for the dog, which I imagine would be kind of expensive, but
Now,
there might be some maintenance. I don't know.
So robot dogs in theory, I'm in. One of the things about Cornwall, as I understand, is there's not a lot of, mountainous regions. Like, I don't think traversing the farm is really doing anything that's more.
It's very rocky. It's very rocky and uneven terrain. So if you were to use
rocky
wheels,
and uneven terrain, okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
even
and
if it's not,
it's somewhat mountainous, not like Wales is, but yeah,
Sure.
I mean,
So
I
there's
think
that.
yeah, specifically, it's just very uneven ground. So it wouldn't be as smooth to have it just rolling, I think.
I mean, I have no problem with this. Yeah. I mean, I think maybe the person who was like, well, I was doing this before might have a problem with the robot dog. But I mean, is there even a person doing that right now? I think, we all, especially when you're talking about a soil that will probably end up being food that somebody eats at some point. Let's figure this out. Is there radiation? What can we do about this? I'm all in.
Yeah, it's not that we're worried about the food being radiated. It's the gamma radiation tells you something about the soil composition, and beyond that, I don't understand.
Yeah, the ability to make the food.
It's like, how does the soil need to be replenished? Does it need to be fertilized more in this part or that part? And what the farmers were doing in the past was kind of spot checking. Like, okay, this part of the field looks like it might need a little attention. Now they can get a much more detailed look and know exactly, which could save them money on fertilizer. It could save them money on all kinds of things to refresh the soil, I could imagine. And it's going to probably be useful for other things. This is just doing it with the gamma ray detector. I wonder what else it could be doing, right? Like, could it also eventually like scatter fertilizer or plant or, identify weeds or pests or something like that?
I also, you mentioned like, okay, this moves a little bit faster than me. So the robot moving at 5 meters per second, that's fast.
Yeah, it's
Like that.
I mean,
that's a
I could
fast human.
I was going to say I could probably go 5 meters per second for a short period of time if I really put my mind to it, but
Not all day. Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly.
this thing could go all day.
Yeah,
so
it's
it's going to cover a lot of ground.
I want to see some sort of, I don't know, some video of an area of this robot kind of being like beep, 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 beep,
Yeah.
doing its thing. This is. It seems like a very good example of where a robot or a machine, whatever you want to call it, is really, really effective in ways that humans just we're not capable of doing, not at that capacity, and will end up helping us in the end game.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we look at these quadruped robots specifically, and at least some of us think like, okay, so you're making something that looks impressive because it looks like a dog, but what would it really be good for? And this is a great example of it being very applicable. I don't know if it's cost effective. The BBC story on this didn't give us a price on how much this dog would cost. Obviously, it's a research study, so this farmer is not paying for it. I wonder if it would be cost effective. Can you make this robot cheap enough or have a lease or something like that where a farmer would spend less on having the robot around the field than it would on sending the samples to the lab to test the soil? It's possible. I don't think it's a guarantee. That's why my head immediately went to, but what else could it do? Like maybe you could make it worth the money that you would have to put into it if you can have it do several things for you, and then those add up, right?
Yeah. I think the overall cost of something like this, and especially does this work on my particular plot of land? That's your mileage may vary. Do they call it miles in the UK? Yeah, they do. Or your kilometers may vary. But yeah, I don't know. I'm into it. I would love to hear from anybody out there who's like, well, this was my job and the robot dog took it away from me. But I don't think we're going to hear a lot of that. It's probably more a lot of people being like, this is awesome. Like I basically got a better lawnmower.
Yeah, especially in farming, you have a shortage of labor more often than you have the threat of something taking it away. So I think this is very much a labor saving device and a cost saving device potentially. As well. And I liked it because it's an example of robots doing something that isn't just like carrying a gun. Generally the robot examples are some kind of military application or potentially some kind of search and rescue application, which is a great application. Don't get me wrong.
Well,
but
it's nice to see
it's nice to see. Sorting things for a warehouse. There's number 3. That's a really good one. It's nice to see a different one. That's why this one caught my eye.
Well, Huawei's new Mate 70 smartphone series has gotten a bit of attention today. It uses advanced chips manufactured domestically, pointing to progress in China's own semiconductor industry, despite U.S. sanctions. This has been going on for a while between the U.S. And Huawei, among other companies, but Huawei specifically. Richard Yu, Huawei's consumer group chairman, called the flagship device the smartest Mate phone yet. The Mate uses Huawei's own Harmony OS Next OS, which was officially launched last month. The Mate line also promises AI capabilities, improved photography, live transcriptions, translations of phone calls, just smartphone stuff. The 5G phone, which it is, features SMIC's 7-nanometer chips. Analysts say this development could reshape global supply chains, because it showcases China's ability to innovate under trade restrictions. A lot of people wondered how, not necessarily if China could do this, but how long it would take for China to do this. A lot of folks also wonder if Huawei's production scalability can rival global competitors.
I'm sure everyone in the audience is shocked that Huawei's own consumer group chairman thinks that the Mate is the smartest Mate phone. What a surprise! But you don't have to take his word for it. The reviews of this have actually been very good. That this is a really interesting line of phones. There are some quibbles with the Harmony OS Next. Some folks are like, 15,000 apps, not a lot of apps. Huawei says we're going to have 100,000 within a few months. Other folks have noticed that there's some bugs and things that are not as smooth as the version of this, which, by the way, you can still buy a version of this with the previous Harmony OS that runs on Android and use the Android apps if you want. But Huawei's not going to do that in the future. They say in 2025, all their stuff is going to have Harmony OS Next. So they need to work out the bugs. But I can't tell if the bugs are any more serious than the early bugs of, say, the earlier versions of Android, which it turned out not to be fatal to the operating system. So I think this is an important step for Huawei. And beyond that, it's definitely showing that putting the restrictions on China did not keep it in the past or bring it to the bargaining table so far. So far, it has caused China's domestic industries to speed up and get to 7-nanometer chips. Now, granted, they're not the 3-nanometer chips. It's going to take a long time for them to get up to pace, because the closer they get to the current standard, the harder it's going to be to make that progress. But I think a lot of people are surprised that they're at 7-nanometer already. And for consumer electronics, especially in a country that's amenable to buying domestically, patriotically buying Huawei, 7-nanometer chips are probably going to be plenty powerful for most folks there. They're going to sell a lot of these.
What do you think would be if you had to guess, the timeline would be to get from 7-nanometer to 3?
I don't know. I don't know enough about chip engineering to really say for sure, but let's guess something like, double the amount of time for every step forward, right? It's just going to keep getting harder and harder. Yeah. But they'll get close enough that it really won't matter that much. Like, they won't be able to sell a lot worldwide, But domestically, China is able to tilt the market in their favor. The public sentiment is on their side too. It's not like people in China don't like Huawei. They prefer Huawei because there are restrictions, because the U.S. tried to essentially shut the company down.
It's hometown.
Exactly. They probably like Huawei more now than they did before U.S. put restrictions on Huawei and the rest of China.
I'm wondering, okay, so Apple obviously has already been a bit of a victim of Huawei's kind of resurgence. I'm wondering, what are the other companies that stand to lose the most from Huawei? Xiaomi, sure, just because they're the direct competitors, but what are the other companies that are, shaking in their boots right now?
I think Xiaomi's probably doing all right. They're going to start making their own chips as well, and they're able to compete outside of China better than Huawei is because they have fewer restrictions on them than Huawei does. China has restrictions in general, and then Huawei has extra ones from the U.S. So I think Xiaomi's probably okay. What's that company in China that is not from China, but they make a really easy to use phone, and it's like China's more like one of their Apple. That's the one that's shaking.
What are you doing right now? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think Apple has the most to lose here because they're from the U.S. And so they have a little bit of a hill to climb with people, and they are running into issues. For example, Apple Intelligence. They cannot use ChatGPT there. They can't even use all of their own Apple Intelligence algorithms there, and they're looking for a partner and running into roadblocks. It's not in a lot of domestic companies' best interest for Apple to be able to compete on AI, so they're going to make it harder for them.
Yep.
Well, folks, if you want to hear us talk about something on the show, one way to let us know is our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show. You may say, well, didn't I used to be able to go to a easier to remember URL? And yes, they took that away. So no, you can't go to that easier to remember URL. You have to go to reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
Just bookmark it. It'll be great.
Musician Drake has filed a lawsuit in New York Supreme Court alleging that Universal Music Group used bots and bribes to artificially inflate the popularity of Kendrick Lamar's song, Not Like Us. Among the accusations is that UMG gave Spotify a 30% discount on royalties for the song in exchange for increased promotion on the platform. He says that's pay for play. The suit also alleges that a podcaster was paid to use bots to add 30 million streams to Lamar's song, which would be against Spotify's own policies. Drake also accuses Apple of purposefully misdirecting Siri to play Lamar's Not Like Us when a user asks it to play Drake's Certified Lover Boy. There is a famous phrase in Not Like Us that uses the word certified, which could also be an explanation of why Siri gets confused, possibly. And the suit accuses UMG of paying DJs to play Not Like Us, a good old-fashioned payola accusation. The suit aims to compel discovery of information in advance of a potential RICO lawsuit against UMG. They're going to accuse them of racketeering, organizational crime. UMG, of course, denies all of these claims. Not Like Us was one of several songs made when Lamar and Drake were having a beef this summer that briefly included J. Cole before he bowed out. But Not Like Us definitely won the beef, at least in popularity, and became one of the most popular songs of the year. And it appears Drake has taken up the offer to shape the story how he wants.
Oh, Tom, I see what you did there. So first of all, my initial reaction when I read the story was like, this is just sad. You lost your rap battle. For anybody who's not familiar with what that even means, it's like somebody had a song, someone else had a song, who had the better song? In this case, there were multiple songs. Okay, Kendrick just won. Everybody says so. And Drake was kind of I don't know, quiet about it for a while. Kendrick has been doing sort of a ongoing victory lap for some time now about this, and which is great or not, depending on whose camp you're in. But the whole idea that so Drake the artist is going after UMG, which he works with specifically, saying you artificially made this other artist have like the coolest song of the summer. That is sad, because maybe there were some handshake agreements, but I mean, are we all just sitting here thinking that this is the first time this has ever happened? Also, it's a banger song. Everybody likes that song. I mean, maybe not for kids, but there's no way that the song was just sort of like artificially created, to become a success when it just like no one liked it. That's just not true.
No, I think it's a really good point to point out that Drake is on Republic Records, Lamar's on Interscope. They're both owned by Universal Music Group. Like, yeah, they're different labels, and different labels under one corporate family can have a fight. But it is a little unusual to see you go after your parent company like this. It's basically saying like you like him more than you like me. If I had any doubt of whether Not Like Us was really popular, then I would want to give Drake the benefit of the doubt to say like, hey, if they manipulated things, then that's against the law, against the rules, against the terms of service, whatever, and they should have to answer that. I don't like the sort of idea of like, oh, he's just a crybaby because he's lost. If there's a case, however, I don't get the sense that Not Like Us was popular because UMG paid Spotify to spin it, right?
Yeah, like nobody was pumping that into my ears. I listened to it once. I'm like,
it just
song,
was a
and then I
good
listened
song
to it
with a
100 more
really
times.
good line. Actually, multiple good lines, right? Yeah. So I would almost say the crime here would be that Universal Music Group wasted money if it was paying Spotify and a podcaster to do this. Although actually, I think Drake was saying that that Lamar's own organization was paying the podcaster to spin it. That I could more likely see, when you're in a beef, to be like, let's pay somebody to juice the stats and get it up there. But I don't think that's why it was popular, even if he did that. So I don't, maybe a slap on the wrist if that was the case. But it does seem like this is not necessary.
There was also there's a streamer. His name is escaping me right this second. Who said this lawsuit accusing Apple of misdirecting Siri to play Not Like Us when a user asks it to play Drake's Certified Lover Boy, which is a totally different album, which came out a long time ago. Well, not that long ago, but before this. The streamer was like, yeah, I don't actually think that Siri was doing that maliciously. I think it was just bungling things because that's Siri. So it's like, for this to be part of a lawsuit is like, okay, well, where's the evidence that this was like malicious?
Yeah, I don't. That's the least in order of the claims here, I would put the Apple purposefully misdirecting Siri to be the least likely to be true. Yeah. I'd put the paying the podcaster to try to do bots to add streams most likely to be true. And yeah, maybe that deserves a slap on the wrist. I really doubt that UMG was trying to bring Drake down.
Because
on
why
the other hand,
would they?
On the other hand, I could absolutely see them say, yeah, we'll give you a discount on the royalties if we get increased promotion for any of their songs, for Billie Eilish or anybody else at UMG, right? Like, yeah. I don't know if that's illegal. Maybe it is, but I could absolutely believe that they would do that, not to get back at Drake, but just to get a song to be promoted more.
I think, the reason that this is a unique beef and now lawsuit has a lot to do with the fact that, for anybody who hasn't been following this, and I would not, knock you for not knowing what's going on here, because a lot of this is very petty stuff. But
we did cover it earlier. Justin Robert Young did a great explainer of it. So you can go back and find that episode if you want.
Yeah, but the whole idea of someone saying I'm the best rapper of all time, and someone else being like, no, I'm the best rapper of all time. That's basically what's going on here. I mean, if you really want to dumb it down, in a nutshell, that's two rappers doing that. There were some other folks involved, but essentially that's what it is. So it's sort of like, okay, well, if the rapper over here on the right side said, well, no, I'm the biggest rapper of all time and the best, and the other one on the other side is like, well, now I'm mad. That's kind of what this seems like to me.
Why wasn't Drake doing all these same things? Is the other right? I'm not saying two wrongs make a right, but if these are the kinds of things happening, I mean, is Drake trying to make us think oh, but I'm above any dirty tricks during a rap beef? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I buy that one either. All right. Before we get out of here, let's check out the mailbag.
Let's do it. If you want to make the most of your travel points on your next trip, and I know I do, Chris Christensen has a good website just for you.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. I'm surprised I haven't named this resource before on these updates, but Point.me or Point.me is a useful tool if you collect airline points for finding a way to use them for a particular trip. So, for instance, I looked for my daughter to try and bring her and her family out to California for Christmas and went to Point.me and searched for the route that they were trying to fly. And it very quickly looked through not just one particular airline's frequent flyer programs, but a number of different programs all at once. So it's a meta search engine for points and miles. And that's quite useful. I actually bought the standard plan for this rather than just using the free version, but even the free version can be quite useful if you're looking for how to spend your airline points and miles. Point.me is the resource, and this is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
Thank you, Chris. Good resource. Go check that out. It's also linked in our show notes. Point, not points, point.me. We also have some follow-ups on my problem with the charger falling out of the wall socket.
Yeah, so last Friday, Tom, you mentioned how your charger is falling out of the wall socket in GDI. We all kind of talked about, what's the best course of action here. Few of you sent in suggestions, and we thank you for that. Andrew wrote, I got this U-Green unit with 100 watts and 3 USB ports and 1 USB-A port, and it plugs into a lead rather than into a wall.
I actually had one of those as well, but didn't pull it out because it's kind of big and bulky, and I just wanted to use the little one. What we got more? We got another one?
We got another one. Tim wrote in, I bought a 5-pack of these, ostensibly to be able to use large wall wart plugs on a power strip, but one could be a solution for a floppy hotel socket as it has an earth and the socket end is less well used and therefore tighter, and in many cases it would touch the floor and therefore release tension on the charge.
Yeah, a few people had this suggestion. This is a good one. Just they're like little mini extension cords. But they have the ground plug, so they stay in the wall socket better. And then a lot of people wrote in and said, in the newest version of the Anchor charger that I have, they include a suction cup so that you can just suction it into the wall, and that helps it stay in as well. So I guess I could just get a suction cup too. Thanks to everybody for all of those suggestions. Patrons, stick around for the extended show Good Day Internet. People at the Taylor Swift concert set a record for the most data transmitted, and our producer Amos was one of those people. So we're going to talk about what happened at the Rogers Center in Toronto and ask Amos if he noticed all that data whizzing around him in the air.
You can catch our show live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2100 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We're back doing it all again tomorrow with Scott Johnson joining us. And we'll talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.